This week, the global economy was rocked to its core as the BRICS bloc, Brazil, Russia, India, China, South Africa, and their newly joined partners, unleashed a sweeping 100% tariff on every single U.S. import. This unprecedented move sent shockwaves through financial markets and boardrooms around the world, signaling a dramatic escalation in the ongoing struggle for economic supremacy. This is not a minor trade spat, it's an all-out economic assault, a declaration that the era of quiet negotiations is over. The world is witnessing a seismic shift in the balance of power, with both sides digging in for a prolonged confrontation. The Dow Jones plunged 15% in a single day, erasing trillions of dollars in value and rattling investors worldwide. Panic spread across global markets, with Asian and European indices following suit, as uncertainty gripped the financial system. The move follows months of escalating threats and counter-threats, with President Trump repeatedly warning of harsh tariffs against nations challenging the US dollar's dominance. Tensions have been simmering, and now they've boiled over into open economic warfare. BRICS, determined to create a multipolar world and develop alternative payment systems, saw these threats as a direct attack on their sovereignty and economic independence. Their response is a clear message: they will not be intimidated or coerced. Now, the price of American goods in BRICS markets has doubled overnight, making them unaffordable for most consumers and slashing U.S. exports. Shelves that once displayed popular American brands now stand empty, or are quickly being restocked with local alternatives. The fallout is immediate: broken supply chains, lost contracts, and a global economic system thrown into turmoil. Companies on both sides are scrambling to adapt, but the ripple effects are just beginning to be felt. For the U.S., this is an economic crisis threatening the very core of its export industries. Factories are idled, workers face layoffs, and entire communities dependent on trade are bracing for a harsh new reality. For BRICS, it's a bold and risky statement. They're willing to endure economic pain in the short term to reshape the global order and assert their independence from U.S. influence. The world watches anxiously, governments, businesses, and ordinary people alike, wondering if this is the start of a devastating economic war, or if there's still a chance for diplomacy to pull the world back from the brink. The stakes have never been higher. The choices made in the coming days will reverberate for years, shaping the lives of millions and the fate of nations. The next moves, whether confrontation or compromise, will define the future of global trade and perhaps the very nature of international cooperation itself. America's tech and manufacturing giants are reeling, facing a crisis unlike anything seen in decades. The shockwaves from the BRICS tariffs have sent tremors through the very foundation of U.S. industry, leaving even the most established companies scrambling to adapt. Apple, Microsoft, and Tesla saw their stock prices nosedive as BRICS tariffs instantly priced their products out of key markets. Investors watched in disbelief as billions of dollars in market value evaporated almost overnight, and confidence in the future of American innovation began to waver. The loss isn't just in sales. Global supply chains are unraveling, shipments are delayed, contracts are canceled, and the intricate web that once connected American factories to the world is fraying at every edge. China, a BRICS leader, controls rare earth metals vital for U.S. tech and defense. Tariffs threaten both cost and supply. Without these essential materials, everything from smartphones to fighter jets faces production slowdowns or outright halts, putting national security and economic stability at risk. U.S. manufacturing, from cars to airplanes, faces a double blow: lost export markets and soaring costs for imported materials. Factories that once hummed with activity now stand eerily silent, as orders dry up and the price of components skyrockets. The result? Factory slowdowns, layoffs, and a manufacturing sector fighting for survival. Communities that depended on these jobs are now grappling with rising unemployment and shrinking local economies, as the ripple effects spread far beyond the factory gates. The interconnected global economy, once a strength, is now a vulnerability exposed by geopolitical conflict. Trade routes are snarled, shipping costs have soared, and uncertainty clouds every business decision. Small suppliers and local businesses are caught in the crossfire. Many are unable to absorb the sudden shocks, leading to closures, bankruptcies, and a growing sense of despair in towns across America. The promise of a U.S. manufacturing renaissance has faded, replaced by uncertainty and fear. Hopes for a revival have been dashed as workers and business owners alike wonder what the future holds. The tariffs have weaponized supply chains, showing just how fragile global commerce can be. What once seemed like a seamless system is now a battleground, with every link under threat. American workers and industries are paying the price for a trade war they didn't start. Protests are erupting, and calls for government intervention grow louder as livelihoods are put on the line. The crisis is deepening by the day. Economic indicators continue to worsen, and the sense of urgency is palpable as leaders search for solutions. The future of U.S. industry hangs in the balance, with the outcome of this conflict set to shape the nation's economic destiny for years to come. America's heartland is in turmoil. BRICS nations, once top buyers of U.S. crops like soybeans and wheat, have vanished overnight. With tariffs doubling prices, demand has collapsed, warehouses overflow and commodity prices plummet. Farmers face catastrophic losses, many unable to cover production costs. The pain ripples outward. Equipment dealers, local businesses, and entire rural communities are hit hard. The agricultural way of life is under existential threat, caught in a geopolitical struggle far beyond the farm gate. Years of work and investment are at risk, with no end in sight. American agriculture is now a pawn in a global power game. The future for farmers is more uncertain than ever. The U.S. government is scrambling to contain the fallout, as the scale of the economic attack becomes clearer by the hour. In Washington, officials are working around the clock, holding emergency meetings and coordinating with state leaders to assess the damage and formulate a response. Emergency aid packages are rushed to farmers, manufacturers, and tech firms to prevent mass layoffs and bankruptcies. Billions of dollars are being allocated in record time, with the hope of keeping critical industries afloat and protecting millions of jobs from vanishing overnight. These are stopgaps. Critics warn they're unsustainable and only mask deeper wounds. Economists and opposition leaders argue that without structural reforms, the relief measures may only delay a much larger reckoning for the economy. Behind the scenes, frantic diplomatic efforts are underway to open talks with BRICS and de-escalate the crisis. Negotiators are working late into the night, seeking any opportunity to ease tensions and restore some measure of stability to global markets. The administration faces a dilemma: project strength at home while signaling flexibility abroad. Every public statement is carefully crafted, balancing the need to reassure Americans with the realities of a rapidly shifting international landscape. Political rhetoric has boxed leaders in, making compromise difficult. Partisan divisions are deepening and lawmakers struggle to find common ground as the crisis intensifies. The government's response is a high-wire act, balancing domestic anger and international negotiation. Every decision carries enormous risk, and the margin for error is razor-thin. The risks of trade brinkmanship are now painfully clear. Businesses shutter, markets tumble, and uncertainty spreads from Wall Street to Main Street, leaving families and communities on edge. The coming weeks will test American diplomacy and resolve like never before. Every negotiation, every handshake could tip the balance between escalation and resolution. The world waits to see if dialogue can avert further disaster. Allies and rivals alike are watching closely, aware that the outcome will shape the global order for years to come. The stakes, economic stability and global leadership, have never been higher. As the crisis unfolds, the choices made now will echo far beyond America's borders, defining the future of international relations and economic power. The BRICS tariff isn't just retaliation, it's a strategic move for a new world order. BRICS, now expanded to include Saudi Arabia, UAE and others, represents nearly 40% of global GDP. Their goal: reduce dependence on the US dollar and challenge Western economic dominance. President Trump's threats against de-dollarization were seen as a direct attack, forcing BRICS to act. The tariffs are both defense and offense, asserting sovereignty and accelerating a shift to a multipolar world. BRICS leaders believe short-term pain is worth long-term gain. By standing together, they aim to weaken US dominance and reshape global economics. The world's balance of power is shifting, fast. This is more than a trade war, it's a turning point in global power. BRICS' united action is the boldest challenge yet to US dominance since the Cold War. Other nations and blocs like the EU and Japan are caught in the middle, fearing economic fallout and reassessing alliances. International institutions like the WTO and IMF are struggling to manage a crisis of this scale. The risk: a fragmented world economy, with countries forced to pick sides. Globalization's seamless era may be ending, replaced by regional blocs and new rivalries. Economic interdependence is now seen as a vulnerability. The rules of global trade are being rewritten in real time. The world order is shifting before our eyes. Economists warned this would happen. Studies predicted that large-scale tariffs would shrink US GDP, fuel inflation, and hurt consumers. The Peterson Institute modeled a similar scenario. Tariffs would cost the US hundreds of billions and raise prices for everyone. The lesson: trade wars hurt both sides, not just the target. The US is now living the consequences of ignoring these warnings. Tariffs are not leverage, they're a double-edged sword. The pain is mutual, and the damage is real. Economic models have become harsh reality. The world faces a new era of uncertainty. The US is reeling, but the shockwaves are global. Supply chains disrupted, markets volatile, trust eroded. Nations are rethinking alliances, moving away from US-centric trade. Regional blocs and South-South trade are gaining ground, with BRICS as a new center of gravity. The dollar's dominance is under threat as countries seek alternatives. The crisis may accelerate de-dollarization and reshape global finance. The best hope is diplomacy. The worst is a new era of economic fragmentation and rivalry. The world stands at a crossroads. The choices made now will shape the future of global prosperity or conflict. The next chapter is unwritten, and the stakes could not be higher.